Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the R Squared podcast. My name is Rajat,
This your boy Rishman here. What's up?
and today joining me and Rishi is Saish Sankhe. Saish, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, doing good, doing good. Thanks for coming on. So, Saish, the reason we brought you on is because you do something very unique and something that we have not heard from anyone else. You play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh. Is that correct?
Yeah. As competitive as I can be, yes. But yeah, we are play. Yeah, we play Yu-Gi-Oh.
So the first question is like, how? How does this happen? How do you play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh? And
How
how?
do I play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh? Well, it's a very so the main company that runs it is Konami, and they
Oh
have
wait, is that the company that did? They used to do Pro Evolution Soccer back in the day.
yeah, there's yeah,
Oh,
the
right. I
same
remember
one.
that.
It's quite big, and uh, I actually didn't know they had a competitive scene like not too long ago. I think 10 years ago is a long time, but like I knew like they played competitively, but obviously I didn't really get into it till I saw a couple of friends, and I met a few friends when I was in sixth form, and I saw them playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Like when I first joined the school, I saw them playing Yu-Gi-Oh, and I was like, oh, what's that? And it's Yu-Gi-Oh. And then I remember I'd watched it when I was a kid, and I really liked it, so they were playing it. And once you get into it, when you start learning a new thing, you're like, oh, I want to learn more. Then you find ways to get better, and then you get really good. You start YouTubing stuff, and then that's how we found out that there's actually a competitive scene for it. So we found out how, like, because we live in London, there's a lot of this, like, if there's an event, you can't find it in London. If we were like somewhere remote, we probably wouldn't. But then we found out there were areas that did like weekly tournaments, and then there were events that were held monthly, that were regional events that were bigger. And then we found out there's like nationals, and then there's like YCSs, which are like more international. So it's just one thing led to another. It was a series of us finding out what it is, then learning about it, and then playing the game, getting good at the game, and then playing people across the country that are also good at the game. It's just the whole aspect, like just aspect of like playing against other people and just playing at a high level. Really, that's how we got into it.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. And so, like, before we get into the tournament side of things, I want to understand the actual playing. So, what does it actually consist of? So, if I understand, it's cards, right?
Yeah.
And so, how do you play? And you said you try to get better. And so, how do you become good, or how do you play better, essentially?
Okay. So from me, from my standpoint, I watched the original anime when I was a kid. So I the show did a really good job back in the day at explaining like the most basic game mechanics. So like, okay, so these are, you summon monsters, and then you have a battle phase, and then you end your turn, and then you everyone starts on like 4,000 life points in the show, and your job is to win the game. You have to reduce your opponent's life points to zero. So that was like at a high level. That's how we knew how to play. And then when it came to actually playing competitively, obviously it's been going on for the 20 years. There have been changes and things. So it was just essentially building off on that knowledge, really. But yeah, it's just, I think that's it, really.
And so, do different cards have like different powers and different abilities to do
Yeah.
things?
So there's monster cards, there is spell cards and trap cards, which are like the main cards. And to basically monster cards, your life points are 8,000, 4,000, whatever. Monster cards are the one to, like, they're the ones that attack, that bring it down to zero. Spell cards are just like ones you play quickly. Trap cards, they require more of like a late game kind of thing, so like it takes 1 or 2 turns to play. So yeah, those are like the main like differentials were for cards, like monster cards, spell cards, and trap cards. And over the years, there's been so many changes, and there's different strategies and different ways where, like, that's how it started, but now you can utilize them in different ways. So now you can play trap cards like first. You don't have to wait 1 or 2 turns to activate trap cards. Monster cards that act like spell cards, things like that. So the most basic way is just bring their life points down to zero. But there are so many different strategies of doing that over the last 20 years that the game is so all over the place. And for a newbie to come in, it's no longer the game I got introduced to, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I was going to ask as well, because you said you started during sixth form, so it's been quite a few years since then. So how has the game evolved over the last year
Okay.
since you started?
Yeah, it's genuinely, it changes so much every 5 years. It's so crazy. So the cars that were initially brought in, like at the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh in 1996, they were so basic that it was just normal summon, attack, that's it, and you just do that back and forth till you summon a monster which is so big your opponent can't get over it. And then eventually building off that, the cards got better and better, and to a point where, like, if the person that played the original card game to someone who played the card game 10 years into the game's existence, it would be very hard to comprehend. It's a very, you need to be on top of things to be good at the game. And for example, now where we're playing now, we have a card, like most games only last one turn. Back in the day they would last like 10 turns. So a game doesn't last more than a turn or two. Like, for example, we have cards here which you can activate from hand, trap cards which you can activate from the hand. 20 years ago, this was unheard of. They're like, that's not what That's not what traps are supposed to do. You have to set them, wait a turn or two, and wait for them to be applicable. Whereas now you can just do things, however. And the game mechanics have changed so much. We have judges now for these card games to break down card text and things like that. So every 4 or 5 years, the game just goes in a direction where you need to stay on top of it. And if a casual player is out of the loop, it is much more difficult to get back into the loop. It's not a case of, oh, I used to play this game before, let me just pick it back up again. There's new things, new game mechanics, new summoning conditions, which is very intense, and where it is time consuming for a game that was so basic to begin with.
So why has it changed so much? Why has it changed so regularly?
Because at the end of the day, it's a business, right? So we made by Konami, so they knew that, okay, this TV show sold a lot, and people want to play the card game. Now they've made money from the initial card game, but the thing is, okay, we want to keep making more money. There's a competitive scene here. Let's print these cards. People are going to use that competitively, but they're like, oh, we want to make more money, and we want to develop the competitive scene at the same time. It's like a win-win for both parties. So you can't keep making the same power level cards and expect people to have the same interest that they did for the last 5, 10, 15 years. So they need to make the last set of cards better. So what they release last month, right, is no longer good anymore. No one wants to play that. They want to play something that's better now. Yeah, competitive players want to be challenged. They want to play stuff that is newer, stuff that does newer things, and in most cases, it has to be better, or you're going to lose customers really, and you're going to lose essentially the competitive scene to some aspect. So that's the
Usually,
reason really.
how long are these games? Like, how long do they span for?
So one game, so it's best out of three, right? So if me and you are playing, we'll do a best out of three. We're given in a competitive tournament, we're given 45 minutes to play those three games. So um, whoever wins two wins. So you win two, I win two, you win one. So I win that round. So I go on to the next round to play a different opponent. So they take around 45 minutes, but depends on the type of tournament it is. If it's a locals, which is one of the smallest events where you play with like people in your area, which is 4 rounds, so that could take around 4 hours because there are 3 different rounds, 4 different rounds. But if you're playing at a regional, they do around 7 to 8 rounds, which takes more or less the whole day. And then even bigger events, which take 2 days. And same with the other ones. The other ones take 2 days too.
And so, what about the turns? Because you said that it's sort of gone from like 10 turns to the game finishing in one turn.
Yeah.
Isn't one turn like very short?
You'd like to think so, right? You'd think that one turn is very short, but the game has developed so much more, and you have to use your brain so much more that it's all comboing, it's all sequences. So the game like 10 turns back in the day was just one or two actions and then you pass it and then you end your turn. But now, because it's all combo oriented, the game still take the same amount of time. It's just less turns because there's so much comboing involved. You have to establish your board, you have to establish your resources for next turn. It's just the turns have gone down. The number of turns have gone down, but it still takes the same amount of time because there's much more brain power involved.
Okay. And then at what point did you figure out that you could take it from playing with your friends to actually taking the competition to the next level?
Okay. Honestly, we we were actually playing with each other, and we were like, oh, you know what? Let's just go to an event, see how we do. And I think I was going to locals, but when I went to my first regional, which is the one step up above locals, which is a 8-9 round event, it's like a full day event, and I only went because I thought I've never been. Let me just try it out, and I went. I did so badly. My first event was actually so bad. I won. There were 8 rounds. This was in 2017 when I was at university. I won 5 rounds and I lost three. So I mean, it's not bad, but it's not great either. For you to win or come in the top 16, you need to lose like only 2 games out of however many rounds there are. So if there's 9 rounds, you win seven and lose two, and then you'll have a chance of coming in the top 16, top 32, whatever it is. So I didn't do great, and then we were like, oh, we're still playing. Like 5-3 isn't bad. Like it's not great, but it's not bad. So for a first tournament, that's not bad. So we were like, okay, cool. Let's go to more events. It's a day out with your friends. You can speak about who you played, what you played. It's a good bonding session, and you also get to do what you like. So we were like, oh, let's just keep going, keep going, keep going. So I only really started going again in the last 4 years because after university, I took a break from the game. And then once we got back into the game, we were like, oh, you know what? We're actually like fully functioning working adults now. We have jobs, so actually let's just go try a big event. See what's the harm in that. So we went to a YCS, and it was in London. YCSs are all over the world, so they are. I think they're between 12 and 20 in a year. So we went to the biggest one. YCS is a very big event, and it was held in London at the Excel Center in 2022. It was around that time, and we went to that event, and we did really well. The attendance was around, I think, 3,600, one of the biggest YCSs they've ever had. So they had 3,600 players. And I didn't do great, but the event itself was so overwhelming and it was so cool. It really made me realize my love for the game and why I play it. You sit down, you interact with someone. They might be from France, Germany, or wherever. You ask them, "Oh, how did you get into the game? How long you been playing
Oh, so
for?"
it was like an international tournament.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, YCS are usually international,
Yeah.
so and then they tell you meet all these other people, and also they have these cool strategies, and you see some new innovation when you play against it, and that's what Yu-Gi-Oh is about, like meeting new people, playing against people with different strategies, you just and trying to beat them, and then hopefully win the whole thing. So it's really cool. So what YCS is, I think, um, really changed my mind about the Yu-Gi-Oh! These big events. It really made me feel like I want to go again. I want to meet more people. I want to play more. I want to, just carry on doing this. Really.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's very interesting. As in, so is there like I know, like a ranking system? So like best in your region, and then best in the UK, and
Yeah.
then Europe or something like that. Some sort of official, I don't know, board or something like that, which manages these things.
Yeah, yeah. So recently, not recently, about 3-4 years ago, Konami decided to release an app called Neuron, which uh, which basically logs all the competitions you've gone to in the year, and it gives you points and places you in the world leaderboards. I believe it's the world leaderboards, or it's like national. I'm not too sure. And for you to get these points, you need to attend locals, like official events, whether it's locals, regionals, and things like that. And if you do well there, the more points you get. So if it's I mean, for it's not the best way of doing it because you can, like, say the pro players, they'll only go to big events and they won't go to all the locals. Whereas someone who can find themselves at the top by just going to a lot of locals, going to a lot of regionals on the weekend, and just getting a lot of points. So it's the best thing we have in terms of the ranking and who's got the most points, but it's not. I mean, there's faults obviously, but yeah, you can find usually the best players in the ranking anyway. So that's what we have so far in terms of rankings for the best players.
Okay, so like, would you say you're also there in part of the rankings?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean, I have a number. I am on the neuron, but I won't say I'm high up because I don't take it as seriously as the pro players. Obviously, when you have a job and things like that, I play it competitively, but there are people who take this as a profession. They're sponsored by other card markets and stuff like that to go to these events across the world and play in these competitively every month, every week or so. So yeah, I am on there. I won't expect if you go on there. Don't expect to see me in like the top 10, the top, like even the top 200. I'm not too sure.
But I mean, you mentioned pro. As in, is that something you would like to do?
Um, it seemed like a good idea when I was younger because it's a very expensive game, right? Like
Okay.
it's super. You'd be surprised at how expensive the game is. Um, And back in the day, I used to think that when I was 16, 17, like I'd be really good at the game if I could only afford the good cards because all the good players have the best cards and the best cards are expensive. And I used to think, well, I'm beating these competent players when I can't afford those cards. Imagine if I had those cards and if I had a sponsor, I could be a really good pro. But then more time passes, and then you get a job, and like you go to university, you get a job and stuff like that, and then you get access to these cards, and then you realize they're pros for a reason. So, I mean, if I had more time, and obviously if money wasn't an issue, then I'd consider it. But I don't know. Like I gave up on the idea of becoming a professional like pretty early doors, really.
Okay, I mean, you said pros for a reason. Why? That's just because they're better in strategy, or is that purely it?
Yeah, yeah, they're really good.
Uh,
They're really good in strategizing, and it's pretty easy when you sit across the table with someone who's a professional. Even the way they interact with you and the way they play the game, you can tell like, oh yeah, they know how to play the game. They're a few steps ahead of you, and the way they speak, the way they strategize, the way they set up for the next few turns, you can tell this is a professional. They just act like a professional, and then you do lot of self-reflection and think, oh yeah, I'm not as good as them, like and then you're like, oh, like I can't be a pro, things like that. So you can tell who's a professional, who's not, just by the way they interact and play the game.
and what's like the age range of of these people? Like, how young do they start, and how old do they go to?
Like it's the card game, right? Like all the products, it says 6 plus,
Uh,
but I have never played against someone who's under the age of 18.
oh,
It's
really? Oh, wow.
yeah, it's so complicated to play the game. It's like I said, it's no longer the same game that I fell in love with, like that I was introduced to, and it's so complicated that you need to be competent. You need to understand the game mechanics thoroughly for you to be good at the game, and also it's very expensive. I don't expect kids to have that kind of money, or 18-year-olds to have that kind of money, because right now the best decks cost just under £1,000,
Oh, wow.
and for you to even have a chance of competing, the requirement for entry is minimum 500, £600 for you to even pay a competent deck.
Really? Oh,
So,
wow. And how
so
many cards in the deck?
uh, you can have maximum up to 60, but
Okay.
for terms of consistency, most people play 40, which is the minimum, because the initial idea was that if I play less of the cards, if I play 40 cards, I'm more likely to see my best cards as soon as possible.
Hmm. Makes sense.
And you want to see those cards as soon as possible, and then you have different ways of getting to that. So most people play 40.
Okay. Okay. And then, so I mean, a deck can cost, you said, anywhere up to £1,000, and then are there individual cards that can be even higher? Because I know, for example, like Pokemon, for example, like very rare Pokemon cards go for like crazy prices. Is that the same with Yu-Gi as well?
Yeah, yeah. So there is this card recently that's caused a lot of buzz in the community. It's a really really good card. It's kind of like you activate this and you're more likely to win. It's called Mulchami Fuvalos, and one copy of the card is like 150, 160 pounds, and people play three of. So you need to spend at least about, like, you can get it. There's no direct place to buy these cards. There's like secondary markets. So you can, cheapest you can get it for is like £350, 300 £300 if you find the right person. But for just like three pieces of cardboard, you're spending around £400. Just doesn't make sense for a children's card game.
Yeah.
So that, and then you have the other 37 cards to worry about for the rest of the deck, and these three themselves have cost me around £400. You can imagine the rest of the deck isn't going to be cheap either. So yeah, it's pretty expensive, the game.
Yeah, and so also you recently went to Birmingham, right, to play like a pretty big competition. Tell me
Yeah,
a bit more
it's
about that.
like it was so it's YCS Birmingham, like Yu-Gi-Oh Championship Series. It's the same one I mentioned earlier with YCS London. Um, so I went there with a bunch of friends, quite a few people.
And sorry, wait,
Uh,
just to confirm, like, do you play individually or do you guys play as a team?
we play, obviously we play individually, but there are formats which you can play. So at Birmingham, there is the main event, main tournament, which is 1v1 against everyone in the room, right? That have chosen to play in the main event. But the thing is, you're not going to win if you lose the first three. Like if you lose three matches at any point in the main tournament, that's it. And then the thing is, it's like a 2 3 day event. If you lose the first three matches, you're out of the tournament. What's the point of you coming down here, right? So there are side events, there's side tournaments you can do, and the side events are different from the main tournament, where you're like, okay, well, there's a tournament happening if you've dropped out of the previous one for a 2v2, so two people against two people, and then there's three people against three people, so that's called 3v3s, and then tag duels, things like that. It's like very WWE-esque. And yeah, so there's a lot of side events, and then they have mini tournaments as well, which is like there's 4 rounds. There's and it's like 1v1s, but there's only 4 rounds. So if you win all of them, you get, and then you get prizes for winning as well. So yeah, we can go as a team, but our most of the time you're looking forward to the main event, doing well in the main event, and playing side events is mostly just for, oh well, I crashed out of the main event, I'm going to play side events now. And yeah, and they are fun. I personally find the 3v3 very fun. So if I know I'm not going to do well in the main event, I'm just like, all right, cool, I'm looking, I have at least 3v3 to look forward to. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
that's
like
it really. Yeah.
such a big event like this, is there a whole, like a show? Is there like an MC? Is there, I imagine like some sort of massive, exhibition style environment where there's music and lots of people going about in and out. There's different activities on the side. Is that what it is?
Yeah, there's loads. There's something for everybody at this event, right? So it's all streamed on Twitch,
Oh, right.
and it's backed by Konami. And if when you have some spare time, you just go on Twitch and look at some of these main events. The production is very nice. They have commentators, they have the main stage, and where they have feature matches. Like they just pick random ones, and then throughout the day they play better. Like they choose the ones that people that are doing really well, duelists that are doing really well, and they have that at the event. And then also for people, like for example, YCS isn't just for the duelists. People, not everyone plays Yu-Gi-Oh to play Yu-Gi-Oh. Some people just like collecting cards and just having these cards. So at the event, there's vendors and stuff like that which sell cards with different rarities from different countries. Because we're in the UK, we tend to use cards in English, right? Now, Americans, they have a different print of cards. So ours in the UK, our cards tend to be darker here. The American print seems to be lighter. Uh, so I know one of my friends. He obviously he was looking forward to the main event, but he was like, "All right, if I'm also looking forward to buying some American prints of these cards so I can start playing them, because you can't really buy those cards in bulk without paying some extra charges abroad. Like if you order it here, there's a lot of tariffs and charges that you have to pay. Whereas at the vendors, you're like, oh yeah, I want to see how this card looks. I want to buy it. Oh, this is American, I'll buy it. And some and then you also see these European players who are like, oh, I don't want to have this French card anymore. I want an English version of this. So they just get the English cards. And then in between rounds, when you're playing against someone, they're like, oh, you've got a spare one of these in English. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, sure. And then you just trade with I know I was playing against a German player round three, and he wanted one of my cards that was in English. And I was like, yeah, yeah, I have it. We can just trade a card. And then we after that round ended, we just did a little trading there. So the YCS does have a lot for everyone. There's a lot of events going on. You meet a lot of people, and then there's also games in terms of in the side going on in the background. Um, we'll guess what card it is. I'm not sure if you get prizes for that, but it's just a form of entertainment. And you can also take photos with your team, turn it into a Yu-Gi-Oh card. Like you can take a team photo which turn it into a Yu-Gi-Oh card. So there's quite a few things to do.
Right, right. And how did the tournament go for you?
Oh, I did probably the best I've done in the playing it, but I did have a very sad ending actually. So for you to make it, so YCSs are usually day one and day two, because they can't fit everything in day one because there's so many players, right, for the main event.
How
So
many players
this
are there?
for the main event this time round, there was 2,700 players playing in the main event,
Wow.
and it was day one had 9 rounds. So they said out of these 9 rounds, obviously you're going to play against 9 people that day, and you have to win 7 of them minimum for you to progress on to day two, right? So I won round one, I won round two, I won round three, and when I got to round four, I got paired up against like professional, and his actual teammate ended up winning the whole thing. So they have testing circles, right? They test together and stuff. So I lost that one. So I was like, okay, fine, I can lose one more. Like there's 4 rounds, right? There's 5 more games to go. We'll see how it goes. So I win round five. Like the dream's alive here. Round six, I win, and round seven, I also win, right? So out of the 2 games, I just need to win one to make to day two. I lose the next one, right? And then I'm like, oh god, that's a bad thing. I just need to win the very last one to make it to day two. And I have another friend called Ben Wright. He was on the same record as me, and we've never made it to day two before. And we were like, all right, cool. So one of us has to make it. Ideally, both of us make it, but at this point, a lot of players have dropped out because they lose three, and people tend to be like, oh, there's no point in me playing the main event. So at this point, only professionals are left and very competitive players are left. I think there's around 300 players left in the main event from 2,700 at this point, right? And I go into the last game, and I think I misplayed and I lost the whole thing. I lost the last one, and I was like, oh, well, the dream's gone there. But at this point, I was like, if I would have not misplayed there, I would have seen myself making it to day two. But my friend Ben, he made it to day two, and I was really happy for him. And yeah, it was very close. It was very close making it to day two. But the performance was really good. I played against a lot of professionals, a lot of good players across Europe, mostly. And yeah, I did really well. It was a great event, and I did really well in the side events. We got a lot of prizes as a team, as individuals as well. So it was overall a good event. I think I was happy with my performance overall. And I came in the top. I think I finished at like 296 altogether in my ranking out of the 2,700 people.
Oh, nice. That's really good.
So I suppose top 10%, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not as not great, but obviously not.
Yeah,
That
but
either.
like no, so it's like for that last round, like were you feeling the pressure going into it? It's like
100%.
must win.
Like, yeah, I get very nervous because
Your
it's a big
palms are
event,
sweaty,
obviously.
knees weak, arms are heavy.
Yeah, there's vomit on his sweater already. Uh, yeah, I was feeling very nervous, just going to the whole thing because it's a long travel to Birmingham. I haven't been to a YCS in like
And yeah,
If
firstly, you're in Birmingham, which is itself is
it's scary, isn't it?
yeah, scary. Yeah,
The NEC Center, I think that's what it is. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's so
yeah,
many people, and yeah, it's been 3 years since I went to an event that big, and obviously, nerves had to play a lot of it. And these professionals, these top level players, like it's another Saturday for them, right? So yeah, it was you're easy to make mistakes, and at these events, if you make a mistake, you're not allowed to do take backs. Like you can't. Oh, oops, I made a mistake. Like this is a professional event. It's a competitive event, right? So I maybe the nerves played a big part in towards the end where I knew like these are the best players. I can't make any mistakes. Like my day is gonna end if I make a mistake. So yeah, like
yeah. So when you say you saw misplayed, you say that's due to nerves. Like maybe on another day where it wasn't a must win, maybe you would have maybe done differently.
yeah, I'd like to say that, but also at this point, because the whole event started at 9 a.m. right, and we've been playing constant Yu-Gi-Oh, and at this point it was 8 p.m. right. So I was like, I mean, maybe yeah, I'd like to agree with you. Like on a different day, I'd see it, but because I haven't been to these events a lot, maybe like just my brain was probably fried at the end of the day. I probably made a lot more mistakes than I'd realize because I just didn't see I was making a mistake because my brain was fried. So yeah, maybe if I had more tournament practice in terms of just the settings and if I was used to this, maybe I would have done slightly better. But yeah, I mean, overall as an experience, I played as well as I could have. Looking back at it,
No, that's I mean that was a really good performance. I mean,
yeah,
would you say? I mean, you talked about top playing the whole day. Would you say like these pro players, for example, do they work a lot on some of their mental stamina and endurance to be able to sustain performance for such a long period of time?
yeah, I think so. And these players, they're funded by sponsors, right? So their lives are basically just constantly getting on a plane, flying to a different country, playing constantly, and this is their life, right? They're used to 9 day. They're used to like 10, 12 hours of playing Yu-Gi-Oh, and it's just this setting is just so natural for them. So if you don't live that lifestyle, I'm not saying you're at a significant disadvantage, but it does hinder your ability to play well if you're not used to it,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
And then like these players generally, what is it? Players from all over the world, or is it mainly like Europe focused, or maybe like East Asian focused? Is that where
yeah.
most players are from?
So Konami have done the smart thing of so in Asia mostly they have their own division of the card game called the OCG, original card game. So over there it's just all the cards there are in English languages, like Japanese, which is the original card game, South Korean, and stuff like that. They have their own format. They have a different ban list, a different competitive scene there. Whereas the rest of the world, the Europe and America, they have the TCG, the trading card game, which is in all languages, but most like we live in London, so we play with English cards, but a person in France would have the same card but in French, right? The German, likewise with Germans and the Americans. So like it's like that. So if it's if the event is held in Japan, or you won't see any Americans or Europeans go there, right? Because it's a different card game and you need different cards to play in that. You need OCG cards, which people over here won't have. Whereas a European event, you're more likely to see a lot of Europeans all across Europe to come. For example, at the YCS Birmingham, I played almost out of the 9 rounds I played. I think 4 or 5 of them were just French people. I didn't play against. I played against an English person round one, and for the rest of the day, I didn't come across anyone English. I think last 2 rounds were Germans, so it's pretty cool. And obviously, the same thing in America. You won't expect Europeans to, or at least a lot of Americans, or a lot of Europeans to go to America to play Yu-Gi-Oh, right? So yeah, it's very international. It's very worldwide, and yeah, it's for a place.
And are the top players like celebrities in this world, or is it just like another normal person?
I mean, obviously, like the game itself isn't massive, right? Like
Yeah, I
it's
mean
massive to
celebrities. I
us, so
mean
it's
within the Yu-Gi-Oh world, as in is everyone looking at I know whoever's in the top 10 and thinking, oh wow, that's that guy. Like he's really good, and like
yeah, yeah.
I
We
want a
like
picture with
people know.
him and autograph, etc., etc.
I actually did that. So right now there is the current best player in the world. His name's like, in my opinion at least, Jesse Cotton, and he's American. And he was at the event. He didn't do as well as he should have. He dropped very quickly. I think I'm not sure when he dropped, but I saw it, he dropped. And you have YouTubers as well who make content based on the competitive scene and the new cards coming, the new reprints and things like that. So they're celebrity in their own right from just content. Then they don't necessarily have to be the best players. Just the content they make is very helpful for the competitive scene. And then obviously when these players are reporting on the competitive players, the competitive players also get their name out there. So like for example, Joshua Schmidt, he's also a very famous person who's very good competitively. And then you see these people who they're Joshua Schmidt is German, but he goes to a lot of European YCSs, and he was here at the German one. Sorry, the YCS Birmingham one. So I saw him, I spoke to him, I said hello. So I do get a bit starstruck when I see these people that have been in the competitive scene since I got into the game when I was 16, 17, and they're still playing. And I see them just like seeing like a footballer, really, isn't it? It's like, oh, wow, you're so good. I like, it's nice to meet you. I hope I don't play against you because I know I'm going to lose. So things like that. I met a YouTuber. It's called DB Grinder, and I took a photo with him. So it does happen. You see celebrities, and yeah, it is easy to get starstruck.
Okay, and
So
then and how old are they? So like Jesse Cotton and Joshua Smith.
Jesse, they're not that old. I think Jesse Cotton's like 25, 26,
Okay,
um, maybe a bit younger, but I don't think anyone really is over the age of 35 in the Yu-Gi-Oh community that's famous, really. Like all these competitive players, they play, but I feel like after a certain age, it's very difficult to play at that level. There's other things in life that come in the way, right? Like if you want to start a family and jobs and things like that, you can't really be flying across the world to be playing a children's card game, right? So,
yeah, yeah.
so yeah, I
Le-
don't, I
Um,
don't, yeah.
Sorry, I want to ask you, like for you personally, how far would you want to go in this field, or what would be the aim to get to?
My aim, I feel like a couple of regional like tops is essentially top 16 and things like that, like where you've essentially done really well at the tournament. Here's your prize, things like that. I don't have intentions of winning anything big because that requires a lot of like you need to be fully locked in, you need to have sponsors, and you need to have a lot of free time, which like I just don't have right now. Like I will need to leave my job and just focus on it, like every day, wake up, strategize, think of the ways to beat the format, beat the markets and stuff like that. And I don't have that kind of time. I don't have liberties. I don't have space. Like I don't have time in my life start doing that. And my goal is essentially just play this game till it's no longer fun. And really, realistically, though, one of the reasons I play Yu-Gi-Oh is because of the community we have. If I didn't have the friends that played with me and that still play with me, I probably would have stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh a long time ago. And with that, our aim is just our collective aim as our community is just go to these events with your friends, have a good day out, and hopefully you top a few events, and then you come back and then do it again with your friends. It's mostly just a group activity, really, just to have fun till it's no longer fun.
And also at all these big events, what are like the prizes? Like, as in, if you're top three, to what extent is it? I mean, I'm assuming there are cash prizes. To what extent is the cash?
You'd think so, right? So here's something interesting. So when Yu-Gi-Oh was made, um, it was the competitive scene in particular. They were like, if we don't want to give out cash prizes because it will incentivize cheating. So, and what they did was because they're Konami sponsored and stuff like that, they were like, we won't give out cash prizes, but we will give out like Nintendo Switches, PlayStations, and things like that, and more of our own product. That way, you know, Like they'll give out like, so I don't know, 5 boxes, one worth £70, and then that way there's more product, and then people are like, oh yeah, we got more cards to trade and sell. So it's I mean, rewards wise, it's not great. And we, in the last year or two, a lot of the professional players have started leaving the scene, the community, the Yu-Gi-Oh community and competitive scene, to go to other card games where the pricing is really good. I know Magic the Gathering has always, which is like another TCG game, which is another card game, Magic the Gathering, where the pricing has always been pretty good. Like they give out actual money, and there is a new game called Lorcana, and their pricing is good. I think, and they have Disney characters as their monsters and things like that, spell cards and things like that. So that's I know they have been stealing a lot of professional players from Yu-Gi-Oh, and their rewards are really nice.
Yeah. And so, I mean, how does one cheat in Yu-Gi-Oh?
Oh, there's so many ways.
Like how?
um, it's not always really cheating. Sometimes it's just trying to get an advantage over your opponent. So at the YCS Birmingham, one, it wasn't really cheating, but it was for my. I saw someone trying to get an advantage over their opponent by basically, at the beginning of the game, you're supposed to shuffle your opponent's deck and then give it back. Now the thing is, every deck functions differently, and every deck has a different choke point, right? But you don't know what deck your opponent's playing till the first card is played by them, right? So what they would do is, have you heard of like, the way you shuffle your cards, right? A deck of cards. They would shuffle it in a way where they could see the bottom of the card.
Mm.
So if they see the bottom, like pretend they'll look in a certain direction, and in their peripheral vision, they'll see the bottom of the card. So they pretend they're not looking at the deck, but they'll see the bottom card, and they'll think straight away, okay, this deck's choke point is when they summon the fourth monster, and then they need to search a card. If you stop that, then you've won the game. So people would know what deck they're playing and think, okay, well, what cards I can have to stop that, and where to stop, and what that. So that's not really cheating. That's just doing some unsportsmanlike stuff, right? Cheating would be essentially where, if you're playing against an opponent who doesn't really know your deck too well, you're activating effects which are once per turn, but you're using them twice, things like that, because they don't know better. You're just taking advantage of them, and things like illegal activation. So, because a card says you do something, it doesn't mean you can do it. There's other requirement. There's other locks that's stopping you from doing this now that you've done in the previous turn. So because your opponent isn't aware of those locks, you're essentially cheating to get upper hand. You're activating cards that are illegal. You're activating cards illegally. Things like that. So there's multiple ways to cheat. I'm trying to think of. Something that someone's done against me to cheat. Oh yeah, there was an event. They didn't mean to cheat, but at the end of the day, it was an illegally activated card. I went to in November. I went to UK Open, which is a national, and the wording of it is where they shouldn't have been able to activate it. But because I understood it in a certain way, I went along with it. And afterwards, I spoke to the judge. Listen, I was in this. This was the game state. I activated this. My opponent said I can't activate it because this certain card stops me from doing it. And the judge was like, "No, you could have activated it." And yeah, like even though his card says that, it doesn't fall in the right requirement for your card. So he ended up winning the whole round against me, and he didn't mean to cheat, but in the grand scheme of things, that was an illegal play from him. So it does happen. Sometimes people don't mean to cheat, but it does just happen.
So so judges are not there for individual. I mean, I guess you would need to have like hundreds of judges then, but obviously, so judges are just there to like sort out any like issues and things like that, right? I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. So there's a head judge at every event, and then there are judges underneath them. So at the YCS, I think there were like 15, 20, I'd like to think. I mean, like I would have to count individual judges, but there's quite a few judges, one for each row in a way. And for an event like a YCS, 2,700 people, you need a lot of judges, right? But yeah, the normal judges, um, they can get things wrong. So whenever they come up with a ruling, the judges, they're like, okay, this is a situation. I'm going to side with this guy because that's how I understand the game. That's coming from the judge, and then you as a player be like, well, I don't think you're right. Can we get the head judge here? So the head judge comes, and then he can overrule with the judge. Like be like, okay, no, judge, you got it wrong. As the head judge, I'm going to side with the other player. And there are cases where the head judge just rules in favor of the actual ruling. So yeah, uh, I believe I've had most good interactions with judges, like not bad. So I mean they're essential to the game, and they do a good job to try to stop cheating as much as they can.
Mhm. Yeah, and then another thing I want to ask is because throughout this thing you mentioned it being a children's game
Yeah,
quite a lot of times, and so I want to ask like, what's the reaction of like your family and your close friends as to you, because it's not just a hobby; it's a level above just a hobby for you. So,
yeah.
what's the reaction of others around you to you taking it so seriously?
Um, I mean I take it with a pinch of salt, really, because like most of the time the anime has done a good job for like introducing people, but it's also done a bad job in terms of like adults' interpretation of the game. So when I tell people I play Yu-Gi-Oh, they're like, oh, like that cartoon. So that's already like that's just set a bad idea in their head. Like, oh, he's playing a cartoon game. That's not good. But then I can't explain to people that like it's actually so much more complicated. Like I can't just tell everyone that says that like yeah, it's complicated. Like I go to these events, there's so much involved, it's so expensive. I feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle there. So I just tell them, oh yeah, I just play a card game. I play Yu-Gi-Oh. I just oh, where are you going? I'm going to an event to Birmingham. So I tell like I pick and choose my battles on who to tell and who not to tell. And with my family, it's like they've seen firsthand how complicated it can be because I've tried explaining to my families, like I've tried to explain to my family and my friends, like, okay, this is how you play the game. And most of the time, as soon as I introduce them to the game, they're like, this is so complicated. I'm not going to play this with you. And so, yeah, you just have to pick and choose your battles and you just have to say it in a way where like they don't immediately judge you.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough, fair enough. I mean, I mean, it's one thing just playing it, as a time pass, but I mean, I feel like if you're taking it to events and traveling and stuff, that's a really big commitment. And obviously, you're doing well, which
Mm.
also needs to be like commended as well, because I mean, obviously, so many people. It's not easy to, especially, and when you're not pro, competing against pro players as well, to still be putting a good performance is not easy. So yeah, I mean, well done to you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
And also, like now from your current like set of cards, what would you say is the best? I mean, I don't if you don't want to reveal any secrets, you don't have to. But what would you say is the
Um,
best without losing
I
any competitive advantage?
I mean, it's thing is the way the competitive scene is. There's usually like two or three of the best strategies that everyone's playing. So it's not really me revealing anything. It's that everyone kind of knows that if you want to play and win, you need to play either one of these three decks. So I'm currently playing like Razio Mitsurugi, which is one of the better decks in the competitive scene. And the deck is good. It's not the most consistent, but it's good. Did all right at the YCS Birmingham with it. That's what I played. And the overall deck it was actually pretty. I think if I were to do a deck, I think the deck to play that deck it costs around 800 £900. So the deck is pretty. I mean, the best decks are usually that expensive, but the thing is, out of those 800 £900, 400 of which are legacy cards, really like staples that you've been collecting over the course of the last 10 years or so. So it's not really you. Okay, I need to play the best deck in the room. I need to spend £900 straight away. It's more the case of I want to play the best deck in the room. I already have these cards from 3, 4, 5 years ago. I just need to spend 200, 300 pounds on this new deck to really put it together. So yeah, there's no particular monster per se, but like the Molchami Fuvalos people playing, that's pretty expensive. That's pretty much of a good card. But yeah, the whole deck, the whole strategy in general is where it's what people like to associate with. Like, okay, this is what I'm playing. This is expensive, and this is the one. And people believe that this is the best deck in the room. Things like that.
Okay, interesting, interesting. And so now, do you have in the short term? Do you have anything, any tournaments coming up for you?
No, I've. It's just I um, I don't like playing Yu-Gi-Oh every week. I don't like attending big events every week because I feel like if I'm not going to win and to play competitively, you need to have a certain mindset. I need to be a little bit. I don't want to say toxic, but you need to be ruthless at
Obs-
those levels.
I think you need to be obsessed, like with any other sport or game, right? You need to be
Yeah.
obsessed to be,
So
yeah.
I just don't feel. I like the game. I like playing the game. I can be competitive with it, and I can pick and choose when to be competitive, right? But I don't feel like I don't want to play it every week at that level because I feel like it's a long day. It wastes a complete day, and I just feel like it's not. I love the game a lot and it's very great. People are good, but at the end of the day, it's the community. And if I'm playing that competitively, my friends also are not that competitive where they'll go to every single regional, they'll go to every single national, they'll like the things like that. So it's also a case of like I'll go to an event when I feel like I want to go to an event with my friends and actually do well because I'm too. I personally think I'm too old to just go every week, stay in a warehouse or something, and just play like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh with like these random people I've never met for like 12, 13 hours straight. Even though I do like it when I do it, but I don't think I can handle every weekend traveling across the UK and going Birmingham again. That's,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That I understand. Fair enough.
yeah.
Fair
But
enough.
yeah, there are. I mean, it depends. I think in a few months' time, there is a nationals. I think in June there is the nationals coming up in Birmingham, I believe. So I we do have intentions as a team to like go up there and play because I last time I wanted to go nationals, I went to Kenya, so I missed out on the chance to go to the nationals. So this year I intend to go to nationals. I believe it's in Birmingham again, so it'll be nice. It'll be after the YCS Birmingham, an event not as big, but I still believe there'll be 1,000 people, 1,500 people if we're lucky. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to next in terms of a very big event.
And oh wow, another trip to Birmingham.
Yeah, it's I'm getting tired. Why is it Birmingham? Why can't we
Yeah,
have it
I
in
know.
London?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah. Why aren't there any events in London?
Um,
You think they'll get more
because
of a crowd, I guess, if it's in London,
you
right?
they will get a more of a crowd, but at the same time, there aren't a lot of venues that host it. We only have the Excel Center really,
Mm.
and the Excel Center hosts a lot of people, but I feel like it's also like expensive, and I don't know. I feel like Birmingham as well is in like a point in the UK where it's accessible for everyone
Yeah, it's in the
because the
middle,
venue
right?
is very close to the airport, the NEC and everything. And whereas London, I feel like people find it a bit of a hassle. Like for example, people from Scotland, Manchester, they'll much rather come to Birmingham than they'll come to London, right?
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
maybe that's why. But yeah, and also, but like the actual event in Birmingham is pretty cool. They organize it really well. It's just going to Birmingham is the hard part, really. So
Yeah, fair
yeah,
enough.
pretty cool.
Fair enough. Nice. Didn't think I have any other questions. Rishi, you have anything?
Honestly, it was I had more fun enjoying listening to that
Yeah, that's very
conversation.
interesting, actually.
It was very interesting, and I mean, you do have the knowledge for this. I like how much you're into it. It's quite amazing, to be honest.
Thank you,
Yeah.
But
thank you.
just one thing I'll ask: how much luck is involved in this when playing?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. You know, every time I lose a game, like a part of me wants to just blame, like, oh, there wasn't skill involved. You just won because you were lucky. Yeah, like you just drew the right cards. It's not mathematically possible. So luck is involved, but you, it's also like skill. But it's so hard to tell at what point it's skill and it's just good deck building skills. That is just it's just very hard to tell. But yeah, it's very easy to deflect and be like, you won because you were lucky. Oh, you just happened to have the right cards to stop everything I did. Things like that. So there is an element of luck in it.
Right, right. And the last thing is, you said you trade cards with other players.
Yeah.
Can you trade cards with international players? Say if they're in a different language,
Hmm.
then what happens there? What? How does that switch?
I mean, if they can, so there are some issues that come up with that. So, for example, uh, at the YCS Birmingham, everyone spoke English. So, like, they were French, but they spoke English. But uh, with French cards, right? People ideally want to have English cards because it's more universal, right? So, because we have access to a lot of English cards, and they might not, particularly in France, Germany, or whatever, they want to have English copies of it. But and also there were issues at this event, me in particular, where I was playing against a French person and they summoned a monster, which I've never seen. I didn't know what the card did, but it was in French. So I had to Google it, or with the Neuron app, I had to find out what it was. And I quickly read it, and then something came up in like the next turn where I asked my opponent what it does again, because it was in French, and he explained to me what it did. But then when I did something, he was like, "Oh, you can't do that because my card says this." But I just said, "Oh, but I just told you. I just asked you if I can do that." You said, "Yeah." He was like, "No, no, no. Like it's on the card. But the card's in French. Do you get me? So I have to. There are problems that come up when cards aren't in English. So people try to get English cards. So if they see me playing English cards, they'll want to trade with me for English cards, or they can just buy from the vendors English packs. So issues do come up, and because there's a high demand for English cards, those packs and those boxes they tend to be more expensive than the one in the local language. So if you're in France, obviously the French packs are going to be cheaper than the English packs. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's pretty cool. I think that also answers my questions. I don't know if Rajat popped up any others.
No, Ishi, you can carry on with the final segment, I think.
Yeah. Let's get some interesting questions. Our usual go-to questions, but it'll be interesting to hear,
Okay,
your perception of it.
let's go.
Yeah, let's go straight into it. All right. So, question number one: if you could travel to any country in the world and live there for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
My sister asked me this 2 days ago. She said Brazil. I don't think I answered her. I needed I know, like, because I couldn't think and then something came up. Um, I think I've had this conversation with Yash as well. He Singapore, but I feel like it's too bougie. I feel like when I have money, I'd like to live there. Dubai is always a good shout. I really want to, obviously, like, to stay on brand. I'd like to say like Tokyo. Like it's a card game, right? And there's so many things to do in Tokyo as well. So just chill out, just have some, enjoy sushi. I'm a pescatarian, so I'm pretty sure their sushi is probably going to be like very, nice, I suppose.
Mhm.
But yeah, Tokyo's up there. I I know you guys would want me to say Kenya, right? Ken-
Oh no, Japan is
No, no,
actually my
yeah,
favorite place.
yeah, same,
is it?
Honestly,
same.
yeah, it is. People are humble. I mean, I love anime, and that's the go-to place for anime
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. That was one of the
Uh,
reasons, but I didn't want to say out loud.
nice. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's nice. It's good. Yeah. Only problem with Japan is very expensive to live in. Like,
Is
it's
it?
crazy expensive. Yeah, everything is ridiculously priced.
Okay. How do you know that? Have you been?
I've been there once,
Okay.
but I follow a lot of pages on Japan generally.
Okay. Where'd you go?
Tokyo, Kyoto. Honestly speaking, if you watch Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Kyoto is a lot like that. You think Tokyo is like that, but it's
Mm,
opposite. Kyoto has that
okay.
nightlife of these classic cars and all. But Japan, I went when I was a bit younger, before I
Oh,
started
okay.
watching anime. So I think I would want to go now, having watched it and understood the culture more.
Yeah,
It's an
yeah.
interesting one, but yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, on to question number two. What is your other hobby you can say you have outside of Yu-Gi-Oh and your day-to-day work?
Oh my God. No one's asked me that before. I don't know. I'm trying to stay in shape now, so probably the gym. I try to go every day. Um, Other hobbies. I'm a big fan of MMA. I watch a lot of the UFC cards, and I suppose in terms of a hobby that compares to Yu-Gi-Oh that I do, like I don't think there is one for me. Um, I don't think I have the time really to incorporate any other hobby along with Yu-Gi-Oh. But I suppose, yeah, MMA, I suppose, and gym. Like watching MMA,
Nice.
that is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you find, you can give it a shot as well. Rajat has a lot of knowledge on all these things.
Yeah,
Really?
I know if you listen to our episode with Rishi's boxing coach, he talked
Oh,
a
yeah, I
lot
watched
about.
that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was quite
The
interesting.
Did you do a sport, by the way? Did you do one of the martial arts, Rajat?
As an I did bit of taekwondo when I was
Oh,
small.
so did I. So
Oh
did I.
yeah, nice.
So
So, but like I also quite like I like MMA and the fighting as well.
nice,
So
nice,
quite
nice.
interesting.
You'd probably watch it, next
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, for
In the
sure.
next Diwali party, huh?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Without intense fireworks.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
yes, on to question number three. What's your go-to karaoke song?
Oh my god. Um, you know, uh, Actually, to be fair, it's a pretty sad song. I'm a big fan of Childish Gambino. Like, I don't know if you guys know who that is, Donald Glover, right? And then he released like an amazing album when I was like 16 called Because the Internet. And he's got the song 3005, which I absolutely love. Like, I'll be right by your side to 3005, hold up. And yeah, that would probably be it. That's the one I know the best. Um, and I would like to, not that I'd like to sing songs, right? But like, I'd like to go to a karaoke event with just Taylor Swift songs. I'd like to see like how that would go.
I did not see that coming. I honestly did not did not see
You'd be
that coming.
surprised. You'd be surprised how many like guys we know like Taylor Swift. It's really cool.
That that's a crazy range of music. Went from Childish
Yeah,
Gambino to Taylor Swift.
yeah.
Yeah,
Throw some
literally.
Burna Boy in there too. It just
Yeah.
confuse the audience.
Nice, nice. All right.
Right.
So on to the next question. How do you usually handle failures or setbacks? And if you're willing to share any experience from that.
Mm, I just feel like it's a very good question actually. I just feel like I look at the situation in hand as what could I have done better and what I did. And if usually the answer is there's nothing I could have done better, then I'm like, all right, cool, time to move on to the next thing. But if there are situations where I'm like, yeah, that was my fault. I could have done better there if I prepared better, things like that. And if I know it's a recurring thing where like, oh, I'll have another shot of doing this better, then I just tend to like go down to the things where like, just rethink the whole situation, what went wrong, what I can do better, things like that. So failure is more of a thing. It's got two situations really. Either just, okay, it's not going to happen again. Let's move on to the next thing. Or secondly, okay, cool. Let's just go back to the drawing board and see what we can do better this time.
Nice, nice. And because that was a bit of a deep question, that brings on to the next one, which is also a little bit deep. But what's one quote or motivational, saying, be it your own or somewhere you have read or heard, that you'd like to share to all our listeners out there?
Um, like, okay, so this one isn't like the most inspirational one. I heard this a long time ago. Um, it's very basic. It's like to be the man, you have to beat the man. And it's more of a case of like I consider myself as the man. So for me to always be better, I have to beat myself and be better than how I was yesterday. So
Like
that's
like
that's
you're
that's a
you're your own competition basically.
yeah, yeah. And it's a very difficult competition to be honest. It's only so many ways you can be better than yesterday, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
All right,
so
nice, nice.
that's one of them.
I like that. I like that. And on to the final question
Yeah.
of the evening. What is, if you had one choice of a superpower, what would it be and why?
Super speed, 100% super speed. Because I feel like
Yu-Gi-Oh. you'd play cooker.
Uh, I feel
So,
like that's such a waste, That's what's the point? I have to travel still, I have to still take a plane. What's the point of being good at Yugi if I still have to take like 15 flights in a year?
then, like, if you had super speed, I think just get a second house in Birmingham at this rate.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I'm very late to things, right? Like that's just who I am as a person. Like like if I had super speed, I reckon I could get there in time. But then when you watch The Flash, like he was late before he had powers, and he was still late after he had powers. So I feel like that's more of a mindset kind of thing than a
hundred
superpower thing.
percent, 100% agree
So
there.
so yeah, super speed mostly because I feel like most of the time I just want to get things done quickly and not spend a lot of energy and time doing it. So I feel like super speed will help with that.
Nice. Honestly, I think that was also a very unique answer. No one has said that before.
Yeah.
And the reasoning is fair enough as well. But good luck on your timing without the super speed. Either way,
I'll try.
respectfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it from my end with the rather interesting questions and interesting answers we had from you as well. But
Thank
I
you.
think
Thank
let
you.
me hand it over to Mr. Raju to
Yeah,
take us home.
yeah, all good. This is a very interesting podcast. Thanks for coming on, Saish. That was a very interesting topic, very unique, as I said at the beginning, to discuss. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, thanks for sharing. Hope you
Chris,
enjoyed
thank you
it.
for having me. I really enjoyed it. I've never been on a podcast and I felt like this was, very interesting. It made me think about things that I haven't really thought about myself while playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Or in my Yu-Gi-Oh! Journey. Like, oh yeah, I never really thought about it that way. So it's nice to have these thought-provoking questions being, asked.
No, 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 thanks. Yeah, good. It's good to have you on, and we wish you all the best in your future Yu-Gi-Oh journeys as well. Maybe we'll do
Yes,
a
yes.
part two at some point.
We'll do a pod. Yeah, I'll let you know how,
Because
in 2 years' time when there's another YCS in the UK, I'll
yeah,
tell you
yeah.
He'll
how I did
be
badly at that one too.
he'll be a grandmaster at that point.
Oh, yeah. Oh god, I'll be losing I'll be losing like my brain cells trying to play this game at that high level. I'll be fried genuinely. If I make day two, you still have to play more Yu-Gi-Oh. So imagine after playing 12 hours of Yu-Gi-Oh, you're like, oh yeah, I did well. What do I get? Oh, I still have to play like 7 more hours of Yu-Gi-Oh. Like oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
hopefully,
uh, yeah,
we'll see.
great, great,
But
awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
and thanks to everyone else for listening. Hope you enjoyed. And as usual, like, share, subscribe, comment, and see you in the next episode.
see you
Bye.
guys.